Let's talk about how to handle hard conversations in 3 simple steps. I'll start with an example from my team, break down the steps, and explain you why each of these steps matter. Recently, I had to have a tough conversation with a member of my team. He used to be a very good employee, but over the past few months, he lost a noticeable amount of motivation. And from time to time, he skipped the daily stand-ups. Now, these daily stand-ups are very important for the team to give updates to each other and understand if there is any blockers or anything that we need to consider. Now, I didn't want to make things worse or risk losing him, but I knew I would if I don't speak with him. This could affect also the rest of the team over the time. All of these things were weighing on me, and I knew I need to address the situation quite soon. But it's important to keep in mind the goal of any conversation is to exchange thoughts, concerns, and ideas. It's not about arguing and shouting at each other. We want to have a reasoned and respectful conversation. For a conversation like this to happen, we need to go beyond the just listening to each other. We need to actively listen to each other. We need to listen not to respond, rather listen to understand. It's about understanding, engaging, and paying attention to the details. So I asked him if he had time, and we jump on a call. I said, "Hi X, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you." The first step is to make sure that the person is in the right place to talk. We often jump to a conversation without asking if it's a good time or not, and that's where the problem starts and things goes wrong. Imagine you had a long, stressful day and someone comes to you and start to talk without asking if you have time or not, if you are in the mood. What will happen is that you wall up, right? So the same goes with other people. So say something like, "Hey, I want to talk about something important and uncomfortable with you. Do you have a moment?" You're not just asking about their availability, but rather you're asking if the person is on the right mind, if he or she is in a right headspace. You'll be surprised how better thing goes when the other person feels heard and respected. The second step is to set the tone and remind the person that this is a collaborative effort. When you ask people for help, it brings you both on the same side of the table. You are not opponents, you are teammates working through it together. This approach has always worked for me, whether it's at home, at the office, or with a stranger outside on the street.
Now that the person is ready for the conversation, it's time to explain it. Now, there is a well-known technique that leaders use in professional environments named FBI method. And no, we are not talking about becoming FBI agents, but rather FBI stands for Feeling Behavior Impact. You need to be clear about the behavior that made you feel in a certain way by focusing on the behavior and not attacking the person's character. This way, you will maintain the respect and dignity in the conversation. Use a specific example of when this behavior happened, and be very careful not using phrases like "you always blah blah blah" or "you never blah blah blah." This type of a statement puts always the other person on defensive. For example, "I feel concerned." This is the feeling. The next step is the behavior. What is the behavior? When you miss our weekly stand-ups, it results in lack of coordination in your part, and you miss out on critical updates, which affects our team's efficiency. Then listen, not to respond, to understand. This conversation is about solving an issue and not about winning an argument. Ask open-ended questions like, "How do you feel? How do you see this?" Maybe the person lost a family member, had a health issue, or going through a breakup. In my case, my team member was extremely unmotivated because as a senior employee, he already knew all the technologies and systems and services that we already have and felt like he's stuck and he's not growing. If I didn't listen to him, I might have lost him to another company or seeing his performance declining even more. We ended our conversation with some feedforwards. Unlike feedback that evaluates the behaviors in the past, feedforward is about suggestion for a person in the future. We managed to turn around things and he returned to be a great contributor he once was, thanks to a good conversation where we both felt heard. The takeaway here is to first make sure the person has time. Second, he's on the right headspace to listen to such a conversation or engage in this conversation. Third, don't be afraid to express your vulnerability and fears and concerns. And finally, by using the FBI method together with active listening and FeedForwards, you can have a real conversation and fix any issues. And at the end of the conversation, ask the person how the person feels, like something like, hey, how do you feel about where we are landing? This gives them a chance to reflect on what has been discussed and take it as a team effort rather than a task or a to-do. I'll be talking about motivation in the next video. Thank you for tuning in.